right field, way back, Cotto gone back to the wall, it's gone! Home run derby, and there will be tomorrow!
To a pitch, Pirates win. Tony Sanchez with a single to left to score Tabata, and they beat the Cubs in 16 innings, 4-3.
You simply root against them. And, you know, I said all winter, they talk about this team winning the division, and my comment is they won't win it because at the end of the day, they still are the Chicago Cubs. And they will figure out a way to screw this whole thing up.
Well, a lot of things happened today, and they were all great. And they were all thrilling. And they were all dramatic. Too bad we couldn't have had a victory that meant a pennant.
By the shores of old Lake Michigan, where the hawk wind blows so cold, an old Cub fan lay dying in his midnight hour that tolled. All around his bed his friends had gathered. They knew his time was short, and up on his head they put a bright blue cap from his all-time favorite sport. And he said, "It's late, it's getting dark in here, and I know it's time to go. But before I leave the lineup, there's just one thing I'd like to know. Do they still play the blues in Chicago when baseball season rolls around?"
Well, when you think of blues, you think of Chicago. And, you know, when you think of blues in Chicago, the Cubs are right there, just from the color of their caps, but also to what they inflict on their fans and anything else. I'm old enough that I remember when Steve was still around and alive. And he was a great Cub fan. When Steve was a Cub fan, they weren't very good. So Steve wrote, knew that he was sick with leukemia, and wrote this song, The Dying Cub Fan's Last Request, you know, a few years before he actually passed away. But, you know, they still play the blues in Chicago when baseball season comes around. You know, it's such a fun song. But then he also wrote the up-tempo Go Cubs Go, and that premiered in 1984.
Cubs are the champion! The Cubs are the champion! The Cubs win! Look at that mob scene! Ursula got on strike! The fans are getting out on the field!
The Cubs win in '84, but Steve died like a week before the Cubs clinched. He was supposed to sing the national anthem at Game 1, and he didn't live to see any of it. To be a Cubs fan is to know suffering. You know, we're all convinced in our mind that better days are always ahead, but there's a perverse pride in sticking with a team that doesn't win. You know, we love our team. I think the White Sox fans would say most Cub fans are stupid. They should only go to the ballpark when the team is winning. That'll force the team to spend more. I think we celebrate, you know, our ballpark and our team. I was in the stadium in Game 6 in the 8th inning in 2003 when they were 5 outs from the World Series and they collapsed. And then the next night they lost Game 7 after being ahead. And that is about as low as you can get, you know, right? Because you're right there. And I remember looking at the older people in the crowd, the grandparents and everything, and they're all looking and feeling the same thing. That I may not see this in my lifetime. If I got through that, okay, and still am a fan, I can get through anything. And you know, it just sort of hardened my resolve that I want to be there and support them. And, you know, someday we'll go all the way, as Eddie Vedder says.
The dying man's friends told him to cut that out. They said, "Stop it. Boy, that's an awful shame." But he said, "Don't cry. We'll meet by and by near that heavenly hall of fame." said, I've got season's tickets to watch the Angels now. So that's just what I'm going to do. And he said, well, you, the living, you're stuck here with the Cubs. So it's me that feels sorry for you. And then he said, play that Lonesome Losers tune. Gosh, it's the one I like the best. He closed his eyes and he slipped away. Well, Mike, it was the dying Cub fans' last request, so here it is. Do they still play the blues in Chicago when baseball season rolls
People who sing the blues, they have to persevere, right? Life doesn't always come easy to them, but that's what they use. They use the music to kind of keep them going, keep them positive, and kind of watching the Cubs is kind of like that too, right? Do they still sing the blues in Chicago when the baseball season rolls around? When the snow melts away, do the Cubbies still play in their ivy-covered burial ground? When I was a boy, they were my pride and joy. You know, that youthful exuberance for your team, right? Didn't matter necessarily. They were your heroes. Didn't necessarily matter if they won or lost. But now they only bring fatigue. The home of the brave, the land of the free, and the doormat of the National League. I do believe, too, there's a line in there about being buried in center field or having your ashes strewn around center field or whatnot. You know, that it's kind of like, yeah, it's that growing up with them as a kid and that youthful exuberance about wanting them to win, but yet something always happens where they get close and they don't win, and you know, you'll live and die with them and you'll stick with them, and as much pain as it may bring, as much as you might sing the blues over that, eventually there's a joy in being a part of it and watching for them. And one day, it's going to happen. That'll be sweet.
Do they still play the blues in Chicago when baseball season rolls around? When the snow melts away, do the Cubbies still play in their ivy-covered burial ground? When I was a boy, they were my pride and joy. Now they only bring fatigue to the home of the brave